know you're nervous for the Rams, but you got to be a little enthusiastic after being there.
Bro, that game atmosphere was ridiculous. The energy, the electricity. That place was rocking. Anyone was there, and a lot of the Super Buck fans were there too. The Bucs.
Tampa Tones. We are joined by lead goon tonight, host of the Pat and Aaron Show of WDAE, Pat Donovan. And it sounds like Stunna is bumbling a little bit. Going to put him on mute for a second until that gets a little clear. But we're joined by Pat Donovan.
It looks like Stunna's hanging out with Cheech and Chong in a car with the windows up or something over there.
It does look like we got a little...
No, my camera's broke.
Howdy ho, howdy hey, how the hell is everybody? Welcome back into the Buccateers pod. We got a very fun show today, very special guest today. It is hailing over here in Chicago. We're in the midst of a hailstorm right now, so sorry for the minor delay, but obviously internet's acting a little quirky. But without further ado, we're here on the Buccateers with the great man, the myth, the legend himself, the great Zach Johnson, friend of the shows, also known as Bucs by 30 by many, many people in Tampa Bay Bucs world, both on X, Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it, and in Facebook, other places as well. Very popular guy, great collection, great friend, and just a great guy in general. Zach, how the hell you doing, brother? Thanks for joining the show.
I'm doing well. Feel a little unworthy of that intro, but I appreciate it.
Hey, no, you've made a great dent in Bucs world, and whether you realize it or not, I know a lot of people have either said you're saying or collect because of you, or things along that nature. So it's always a great time to talk to you, especially when we get to talk to you about vacation. It's like a freebie for you. You get to talk about a great trip you had, and you got a great jersey in the background. So we'll talk about more things as well. But Zach, I know you don't need, I know a lot of people know where to find you, but where can the great people find you or your collecting posts around the globe?
Bucs by 30, at Bucs by 30 on Instagram and X, I guess you call it. So both of those, and then I'm just under my regular name on Facebook if you want to send me a friend and invite or whatnot.
Yeah, so whether it is or Twitter X, whatever you refer to it as, you're good to go. Bucs by 30, that is, and keep up to date with all the stuff. We have a great show. We're going to get into the Bucs Cruise in great detail. We're going to get into so much more. Bucs Offseason, collecting and stuff. We'll be with you guys for another about 35, 40 minutes or so. So we're ready to rock and roll here. My friend can't wait to get into detail with Zach, with the great J-Lo as well, co-host of the Buccateers. J-Lo, how the hell you doing, brother? We could hear you, but we can't see you. But how are you, my friend?
Doing good, man. Doing really good. Zach, welcome to the show, man. Like I said, I always enjoy your posts and all that stuff and your support for the Bucs, man. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. J-Lo and I actually have talked about the Bucs Cruise and maybe doing it down the road. It intrigues me greatly because I love the Bucs. I love cruising. So you could get the best of both worlds, and we're about to jump right into that. But first, we got a couple of things to get to, Bucs news and so much right now. Before we get into the fun stuff, we got to talk some Bucs football, X's and O's. Zach, the Bucs to me are having a great offseason, in my opinion, as Olivia joins us, commenting, can't hate to wear about the Cruise. Thanks, Olivia. Stay tuned. You'll be hearing all about it here shortly. But Zach, whether it's bringing in newbies, retaining our old folk, as Rochelle Grizafi's joining us on Facebook as well. Shout out to you. Thanks for joining us. They've done a great job. Jason Light in the front office, that is Mike Greenberg and co. You've retained key pieces, Bredesen, Godwin, Levante. You've retained depth pieces like Brewer, Gaines, Merriweather, and so much beyond. Obviously, the newest being Mr. Hall, who missed the Bucs season last year, unfortunately, pretty much. Not to get mistaken, he is a former Jet, but don't mistake Brees and Bryce Hall now. This is a defensive back we're talking about, but he is coming back on a cheapie. Kyle Trask is back on a cheapie. You look around the state of the Bucs, they haven't lost much meat on the bone Obviously, you've lost a couple nice, like Robert Hainsey, but you can't afford to pay him. He doesn't have a spot on our O-line. You can't afford to pay him what Jacksonville did. Tavier Thomas was decent on special teams, but in the grand realm of things, you haven't lost anyone essential, KJ Britt, etc. And then you've added nice pieces like a Hassan Reddick. You've added a veteran linebacker like an Anthony Walker. A lot of people thought Sterling Shepard might walk or hang it up. Jason Light himself announces he's back. You bring in a lot of depth. You bring in a punter, Riley Dixon, which is one of my favorite moves personally. A lot of people aren't talking about that. A Kendall Velder type of move, too. He could play special teams, defensive back. So, Zach, I think the Bucs are having a great offseason. I know J-Lo has been satisfied with it as well. Coming from you, my friend, where do you see this Bucs offseason? Would you have hoped they've done more to this point, done less to this point, or do you see, this is what about I expected from Jason Light thus far?
Well, I think as fans, we all want more, right? Like we can never have enough. But when you take a step back and look at it, the front office, again, has just crushed this offseason. I think people look at re-signing as not part of free agency when you bring back your own guys like Chris and Levante, et cetera. But those are massive free agent signings, right? If they would have signed with anybody else this offseason, it would have been huge for whatever franchise that was. So the same respect needs to be paid back to the Bucs when they bring those guys back. So I think they've set themselves up to where they're not pigeonholed into a specific position in the draft, right? We can now look more at whatever's the best player available when it comes to our turn, or even possibly trading back a little bit and acquiring some more capital. I think it puts us in a great position. The Bucs front office, in my opinion, is one of the best in the league, and constantly underrated or unappreciated, in those social media settings.
And I like a couple things you said. First of all, Zach, I didn't mention it, and you did. So great point by saying it gives us flexibility in the draft, because the great way to build a franchise is by adding pieces that are really good players. And now you could pretty much add any really good player that might cross your way in the draft. Sure, the roster might have a little bit more needs here, a little bit more needs there, but in the grand realm of things, if you like a certain guy more in round one, now it's allowing you to do so by signing a couple cornerbacks. And I couldn't agree more. All these other teams get all the credit in the world for bringing their guys back, and that's great. But not only do you see the Bucs bringing guys back and adding depth pieces, but you also see them setting precedent amongst free agency. What I mean by that, look at some of these contracts getting signed elsewhere. Sam Darnold pretty much got the same exact type of Baker Mayfield deal you've seen a couple of years ago with the Bucs. Hey, it's going to be 3 years, but we're going to pretty much call it 1 year if we want to opt out, blah, blah, blah. You're seeing other types get other pay. I mean, a couple of wide receivers, De'Ami Browns of the world, the kid Palmer who went from Los Angeles, my apologies, to Buffalo. They're making 10 to 12 million a year. Chris Godwin only making but 22 million a year compared to those other guys. What this Bucs offense is, or the front office is doing, they're setting precedent league wide by showing how to retain your players. A lot of franchises can't do that nowadays. Retain your key guys. The Bucs make that look easy. Oh, and by the way, they're kind of setting the shape of other contracts around the league. J-Lo, thoughts on what Zach said and what I said, if you got any piggyback words with any of that, and thoughts on bringing Hall back for the Bucs?
To me, the front office is making all the right moves, bringing back the guys that made a bit difference in our team last season. And some fans don't understand that. They want those shiny toys, some of those big-time name players. But at the end of the day, you can only afford so many players, even if, Greeny has the magic to make the contracts work. But the point is we got our important players back. We got Chris Godwin back, which is huge. Hopefully he can stay healthy and then see what this offense really takes off with him. Bryce Hall coming back. I think he's a good backup in case Dean goes down. Because to me, it's looking like Dean's not going anywhere. He's going to remain here, which is fine.
Which is good news for Zach, because Zach has a lot of Dean items, so that's some good stuff there. But keep going, J-Lo.
No, absolutely. So bringing Bryce Hall back, who I think had a really golden opportunity to step in if Dean or McCollum got hurt. but now he gets another shot at it. I think he's a very underrated corner who can step in there and play. You just can't go into the season with the DBs we had last year. No knock on Funderburg or Hayes, but you got to build that DB room better. That way we can compete, and that way we can, defend against these top teams we're going to be playing against next upcoming season. But also adding also a pass rusher and Hassan Riddick. I like it. The price we're paying for him, not overpaying for, a certain pass rusher that may not work out. So, but I'm impressed with the front office. I can't complain what they've done so far. Now it's on to the draft and just to build the room even more.
Yeah, exactly. It is on to the draft. It's on to build even more. The great JC Allen acknowledging the chat room from Sports Illustrated, great friend of the show's. Acknowledge me, JC says. Yeah, we'll see, tribal chief out of the table, whatever the hell you want to call yourself. So Zach knows what we mean. But Zach, before we ship shape here, and, no pun intended, ship shape. I don't even know if that makes sense. But before we pivot, I should say, to Bucs Cruise and memorabilia collecting and so much more outside of the draft, just kind of free agency in general. Obviously, it's slowing down to an extent. It's but you're still probably going to add one or two guys, whether it's in the spring, the summer, or the fall, right before the final roster cuts are made. But Zach, if you could see the Bucs add a little more meat on the bone anywhere in free agency or trades, where would you do so? And thoughts on retaining Jamel Dean? I'm thrilled after I've seen what, at first I was like, we could maybe cut him and move on and save money. But after seeing what some of these other guys are making in free agency, to me, Jamel Dean is up there with all of them, if not better than some of them. No disrespect to some of the other top corners in free agency. But now to me, Zach, that Dean contract looks like a bargain for the Bucs.
Yeah, the thing I don't get about the fans' perspective on Dean is when he's in the game, he's solid. You can't knock a guy for being hurt, right? Injuries happen, and it's not like he's going out there on purpose and getting hurt. I will say this. Did you watch the receiver program that was on Netflix?
No, but did it kind of, like, watch the quarterback one? Is it similar to that?
Yeah, it's very similar. They follow the receivers, whatnot, but one of them is Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions. And in the playoff game last year against the Lions, when Dean gets hurt, they cut over to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they were like, oh, who was that? Was that 35? And they were like, yeah, it's 35. And he's like, well, now we can go to work. So the receivers of the league respect Dean and what he does. Unfortunately, he has a little bit of the injury bug. But again, that's going to happen. But when he's on the field, he's the best corner that we got.
That's great respect from a guy like St. Brown. That's awesome.
Yeah, both of those playoff games the last 2 years that we lost, he wasn't able to finish the game. May have been different had he been able to stay on the field, but we definitely need some more depth there. I mean, I don't think anybody thought Josh Hayes was going to get any real playing time at the beginning of the season. That really is not your plan when you got, CB6 out there because of injuries. But I'd like to see maybe a swing guard, somebody that can play guard center because we kind of lost that Hainsey piece. Don't know what we have in Elijah Klein yet. Maybe another edge. I don't think you can ever have too many pass rushers. So another edge, and then inside linebacker, we got a little bit, less depth than we'd all like, I think. But those are kind of the key pieces. And I'd almost sell my soul for a weapon in the return game, man. Like, I don't know what we got to do to get a consistent punt, kick, return here in Tampa, but it seems like it has been forever since we had somebody that could flip a field.
Yeah, that's for sure. And we'll see what the hell's going to even, special teams, and not to allude on it too much, but Keith Armstrong got a lot of complaints, and we addressed that by letting him go, bringing in a guy like Thomas McGoffey. And no offense to him, I didn't see a lot of great adjustments last year. If anything, our special teams might have taken a step back. Our returning got worse, and I love Trey Palmer, but he looked lost in the return game last year, and which is really sad because his career, to me, was ascending greatly. He made huge plays in the playoffs, and he made some really nice plays as a rookie, caught almost double-digit touchdowns as a late-round rookie, and then last year was a little weird. And then, obviously, our long snapper, we had two on the year. Decker's got hurt, so you can't take that away from him. But Triner was a guy of health and stability, so that was a never-ending battle. And then we had 3 punters last year, which is unlike the Bucs itself. So honestly, not to blame Thomas McGoffey, former NFL player, but we just aren't looking up to par in terms of special teams, and I think that's an area we have to get better at. I hope Riley Dixon surely does that, but if we could sign a return. Like, look at the Bears today. They went out and got Devin Duvernay, a former Pro Bowl returner. Why not, if you're the Bucs, try and get a guy like that and, hype up that room, or even special teams cover guy? I know we have Josh Hayes, but who knows what the hell happens. All I'm saying is special teams better take an improvement. J-Lo, if you could see the Bucs, before we get to memorabilia and cruise news, if you could see the Bucs taking one more step this free agency, where would you like that step to go?
I would say keep beefing up the DB room. Maybe one more veteran who has some experience, starting, wouldn't hurt at all. And plus, you create more competition, for the other DB room, or maybe add another receiver, or hell, you maybe add another running back. I mean, not saying that what we have is great, but it wouldn't hurt that more competition to push the other players. You know what I mean? You can never have enough competition or even enough depth, on any position. Just like bringing Kyle Trask back, some of the fans weren't happy about it, which I don't understand. The guy knows the offense and he knows the players. He has plenty of reps, so why not take a shot at that? So that's my opinion on that part. But plus, add a kick returner, would be huge, because time of possession. Oh no, I'm sorry, field position. My bad. Field position would be important, on kick return, the punt returns, to kind of help, get the defense a rest. So I say definitely more depth at receiver, DBs, and maybe another pass rusher at the right price. Maybe add another veteran like a Zadarius Smith, who could come at a right price, and be a rotational guy. But that's just me.
Yeah, the only hard thing is, well, not hard, but, we've only had one announced restructure thus far, so that was Tristan Wirfs. Others could be had, but you never know. The cap room, you still got rookies to pump in. A guy like Zadarius Smith may price himself out, but if you could get him for the vet cheap, for a good deal, why not? Speaking of deal, former Bucs coach Byron Leftwich hit a deal with Colorado quick. Zach, thoughts on former Bucs offensive coordinator from the Super Bowl squad, Byron Leftwich, landing not only on Byron Leftwich's staff, but very familiar with Warren Sapp over there, as Christopher Cole says. Evening, everyone. Evening, Christopher. But Zach, thoughts on Byron Leftwich, getting back into the coaching world?
I wish him well in all his future endeavors.
Yeah, that's all we could pretty much say to that, right? J-Lo, thoughts on Byron Leftwich finding work out there, this time at the college football level?
I mean, he's been out of coaching for like 2 seasons. So he was bound to get picked up by some team, whether it's a small school. But Colorado, I mean, props to him, because Colorado has Deion Sanders. I guess he sees something in Byron that maybe we don't see. So best of luck to him.
Yeah, best of luck to him. Hey, I mean, this is a guy who technically got a head coach interview about a month ago with the Patriots, but we all know that's the Rooney Rule. I mean, if you're not going to actually take it seriously, the Rooney Rule is just a dumb one. No offense to Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton, I believe it was, but Vrabel got hired like that, right after. It's just funny, and nothing against Byron, but best of luck to him in Colorado and his future endeavors. Speaking of future endeavors, we're here on the Buccateers. You can catch a replay of this in the future on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast, YouTube, Bucs Life LLC, Facebook, and so much more. And you can keep up with all the latest news of the Bucs here. And also today we're going to talk about cruise news. Some of you might go, cruise news? Yes, and that is the Bucs Cruise. It was just their 3rd annual Bucs Cruise about a week or two back, not too long ago at all. JCL and briefly talked about it on here a little bit ago, a couple episodes back, but we're going to dive into much more detail on that. I've always wanted to go. It looks like a fantastic time. It's a partnership with Celebrity Cruises where the Bucs have, it's been 4 nights and 3 nights now. We're going to get into the night volume. and so much more. But it was our guy Zach's first time, I believe, on the Bucs Cruise. And Zach, what was your thoughts on the Bucs Cruise? First of all, is it worth it? And second of all, do the activities on board leave you wanting more? Like, you know, do you wish it was more nights? Do you think the 3 to 4 night range is perfect? Kind of give us your thoughts on the value of the cruise and the length of the cruise, the activities on board, everything. And that is a great shirt, my friend. I love the creamsicle Tampa Bay look. Kind of just noticing that now, but that's a beauty, my friend.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So this was my first time taking the cruise, so I don't have anything to compare it to, and I'm always a bit cynical. So I'm gonna try to pros and cons it for you, so you have a good idea as to what the experience is. So this was the first time that they've done just a 3-night cruise. The first 2 were both 4-night cruises. It also goes out of Fort Lauderdale, not Tampa. So. You know, so for me, it was a 16-hour drive to get there. So, you know, it was a lot. But so the first night, you know, once you get on the ship, you have what they call a sail away party. It's an hour-long event. There are players there. I will say one of my biggest cons about the entirety of the Bucs aspect of it, because there are regular cruisers on the ship as well. You can do everything that the ship offers, but they cannot do any of the Bucs events. You have to have a wristband for that. So you do have the capacity of the ship is full. But all of the events were very cramped as far as time wise, because you lost a day. There's no real day at sea for some of these events. Like every day you're at a port. So some of your events are overlapping your port time. For instance, the first port that we took was Key West, and we ported at 8 o'clock, but there were Bucs events that were scheduled until noon. So you lost basically 4 hours at the first port, because if you wanted to attend the things that were on the ship for the Bucs stuff, you were sacrificing that. So back to the sail away event. It's an hour long. It went from 3:30 to 4:30, and I'm throwing out the times for a reason. And the players are there, but so is everybody from the Bucs Cruise aspect of it. And this was the largest cruise to date. Each one has gotten more and more people, signing up to go to it. And I heard several different numbers. It was anywhere from 700 to 900. I don't know if those numbers are accurate. That's just numbers people were throwing out. So you have all these people on this one, section of the deck that are trying to get access to the players, and you just couldn't. I mean, unless you were extremely aggressive, it wasn't happening. Like you couldn't get to them by any stretch of the imagination. My wife was like, "I'm not even going to try to walk through here." So she just picked a place to stand, and a friend of mine and myself went to. I had a Cody Mock T-shirt on. They wanted me to show them the shirt, so. When we came back, my wife was like, I think there's somebody in this bar behind me, but I don't know who it is, because she doesn't know who any of the players are. And it was Brad Johnson. So when Brad saw me, he came over and we talked a little bit. And then that was really the only player that I interacted with there, because at 4:45 was the first autograph session for the players. And they started shuttling the players out about 15, 20 minutes early. So that first hour-long event was really closer to 40 minutes with players there, because half of them had to go to this autograph signing. And this year they split the autographs into 2 sessions, right? So you got half the guys went to early dining, and then the other half went to late dining, and then they switched it on the third day, so where you got access to all of them, but you only had an hour. So I had to run back to the room, because you know how I roll. I had an entire full-size suitcase full of things that I was going to try to get signed. So I had to run back, load up all my stuff, and then get over to this room where they were having the autograph. So that ran 4:45 to 5:45. And this is where, as a collector, you'll probably appreciate this too, Tones. This was a hot mess. That's the best. It's the nicest way I can say it. It's a timed event. They spent 20 minutes doing player intros. Right?
Yeah, that just takes away a lot of our time, so to speak.
Exactly. So after the intros were up, like the guys were just kind of spaced out in this room. It was basically like they fired off a starter's pistol, and everybody just swarmed them in a 360-degree radius. So you had people handing stuff over top of you. You really couldn't get, a clear access. People are shoving and pushing, and there's a good bit of people. We're talking, 300-ish people trying to get to. I believe the first session had 5 guys. A lot of cancellations this year, by the way. I think there were 5 cancellation of players, and they didn't replace 3 of them. So that, you're reducing your pool of people that you can get autographs from, but you're increasing the amount of people that are trying to get access to it. So the lines are longer. Well, I don't even want to say line. There were no lines. It was just the group of people.
Mosh pit.
Yeah. So, they had Allstott. Allstott was the most popular guy at the first session that I was at. And he was right up against the stage. So you couldn't get behind him, thankfully. But you had like the full panoramic of people just pushing in and pushing in and pushing in. And then they decided to let O-Town go on stage right behind him. So now you have this full-fledged O-Town concert going on behind Allstott. The speakers are blaring. It's like 600 degrees because everybody is just pushing in and pushing in and pushing in. And you got people that are getting 2 and 3 things signed and then want their picture taken with them. So it was a mess. It was a mess. And then after that was the last thing for the for that day. But the other things that they had, so they had like some panels. The panels were great to listen to some of the stories from the guys. Those were great. There was a Bucs trivia session that was good. There was a couple of different like little game type situations. But overall, it was a good experience. The second autograph session went a little bit better. I think they might have learned from the first one. They spread the guys out a little bit more, and we did see some things that resembled a line, but they were still like sometimes 2 and 3 converging into one, but it wasn't like the complete surround of the player. I don't know if they've had any experience setting up an event like that, like a signing event, because it didn't appear to be. You're handing these guys, some people are handing them jerseys or pictures, and they're trying to sign it in their hand, which, isn't the best quality. So on my survey result, I did put that, you got to put those guys at tables. I mean, you just have to. You got to put them at tables. You got to have lines. You need to separate photos from the signings because the photos just slow everything down. And you need to do the autographs in one session, knock it out. That way it removes that stress from the whole trip, and then you can just enjoy it. Like that was supposed to be an event where you could mingle with the players, but you couldn't have a conversation with them because there's 300 people all trying to get 5 seconds of their time to sign whatever it is they brought. But the staff was great. The players were awesome to interact with when you got a chance to, and when you saw them off, outside of the boat, they would, awesome to take pictures with and talk a little bit. But both ports had overlapping events or events that started before you left. So you really lost a lot of time at the two ports, and we ported in Key West and Bimini. But if you were on the Bucs side, you might not have got to experience both of those to the fullest. I'd never been to either place, so I was kind of rushing around to try to make the best of both worlds. If it needs to be longer, in my opinion, it needs to be longer. It needs to go out of Tampa. I think you'd have more player engagement if it went out of Tampa, because those guys don't want to make that drive as much as the fans don't want to make that drive. So if they could figure out a way to do it from there, make it a little bit longer. Brian Ford did acknowledge that they needed to figure out a way to do the panels and some of the events at sea days so that you could enjoy the port times. So hopefully they make that transition. But overall experience, it was a great time. I had some really cool interactions that weren't part of any of the events that I probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to experience without the cruise. Everybody was accommodating, signing everything. Even if you put 3 or 4 different things up there, they were all real accommodating of it. I don't even know how many times I ran into Mike Allstott on the boat, and every single time I ran into him, he was like, "Hey man, let's do a pic. Hey man, let's do a pic." Like, super nice guy. One real quick story about Allstott, because it kind of changed my perspective of these guys. He did his panel, and then he had something he wanted to do. I think he wanted to go fishing. He's a big fisherman. And they were like, Allstott's got to leave at this time. So when Allstott got off the stage, like, people from the crowd just swarmed him to get more signatures from him. So, and he's doesn't push anybody away. He's just doing his thing, signing, and the guys on the microphone like, Allstott's got a hard stop in 30 seconds. He's got somewhere he's got to be. We gotta get out of here. Well, he leaves. The people follow him, and he stays in the hallway and signs for everybody that wanted him to sign.
Wow.
When I ran into him later that night, I was like, hey, I want to apologize on behalf of, Bucs fans. Like, you had to leave and they were like just hounding you for autographs. And he stopped me. He was like, no. He was like, my career ended 18 years ago. These people keep me as a part of the Buccaneers history and the Buccaneers franchise. He was like, I will sign for everybody that wants an autograph. And I was like, wow, what are you going to say about somebody like that,
That's cool stuff and class act. And I feel like Allstott's always been one of those classier type guy. And that's a perfect point. Hey, at least it's a way to be remembered. But as a fan, you think, hey, yeah, I'll wait my turn. Nope. Sometimes you get a little alcohol in you. Next thing you know, you're a little more aggressive too. We know the cruise drink packages and all that stuff. But I think you hit the nail on the head on a couple things, Zach. First of all, with the Allstott thing, class act. I mean, if you're going to go above and beyond, if you really have a hard stop, if Stank Bastard's joining us, says all I care about is Captain Flair flash in the crowd, show me your titties. So fun stuff there. Cleve and me, one shining moment, the Buccateers. Thank you, Cleve and me. But Allstott, that's awesome because a lot of former Bucs would not do that, or just athletes in general, not even just Bucs. And Zach, class act of yourself as well to tell them, hey, sorry for that. So two classy things there. Another thing, the longer you have the cruise, say you made it 5 nights or something like that, two things happen out of that. Yeah, you pivot into more opportunities being had for potential signings and stuff like that, and more C days. Then maybe if you do a 5-night, maybe you have the day you leave and another C day, and then you have 2 or 3 stops as well. So kind of opens up the can of worms. So the longer the nights, the more opportunities for C days. And when C days are had, a whole can of worms could open. So those are always preferred. Another thing is, I'm a Disney cruise guy, and I know it's different, but they're very experienced with like the character signings and stuff and, meet and greets. And not that I partake, but I always see a huge ass line. And what they do is kind of put like a character out once a day for like a 20-25 minute time period. And then if you get into that line by the time, and then they'll cut it off after 25 minutes. But if you're in the line and it's just randomly throughout the day, so maybe they could try that as well. I think it'd be better if it's a meet and greet, professionally organized and all that. But say if they can't do all that, accommodate, fine. Maybe you put Allstott out there like 3 times throughout the cruise, 30 minutes a time. Maybe that could give him more of a break as well. But you have to figure a 3-day cruise, and the Bucs players probably couldn't really enjoy themselves all that much. As you said, Zach, they had 3 player cancellations, weren't replaced. You had 2 island stops. And as you said, you want to get your money's worth, get off on those islands. But at the same time, you're on there for a Bucs cruise. So you want to get your money's worth at the cruise. So I think the perfect scenario would be a 5-nighter with 2 or 3 C days. So then the island days, activities don't start up until about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, when everyone's done enjoying themselves. And then on C days, obviously 11, you hit the ground running, 11 a.m., boom, boom, boom. You have a lot more room for stuff. That way the players could relax as well. You could offer too then, right? On one C day, hey, Will Golston is doing a panel for this day. And then on the next C day as well, hey, if you couldn't get to that one, he's doing it again this day. So that would also thin out the crowd a little bit, help out, and not make it a mosh pit. But cruises are the best. That's 2 of the things, 2 great things in one, Buccaneers and cruise. And before we see if our guy J-Lo has any questions for you, my friend, I want to ask you one more thing, Zach, is our great friend Jonas Steckler joins us. Hey, Jonas, how the hell you doing? He says, hi, crew. I know you brought many cool things. A lot of people notice your canvases, which, by the way, that's what I mean. Trendsetter right here. A lot of collectors are moving to canvases to get signed, canvases to get displayed with their items. That was brought forward by our guy, Zach. You could kind of see in his background with his Evans jersey, the Evans canvas below. That's kind of a newer thing. Nothing much, Jonas. We're chilling, talking Bucs Cruise, Bucs news, collecting, and so much more. But Zach, Out of everything you brought, I know you brought a ton of cool stuff. What would you say? I know the canvases were the biggest hit. Outside of the canvases, what would you say was the biggest hit? And what gave you the idea of doing canvases? I mean, that's a really cool idea.
Okay, yeah, good question. I will say a lot of the complaints that I have about the cruise are from it being reduced today. They did the best with what they could, right? I'm not trying to, crap on anybody in the cruise and dissuade anybody from it. It's just there's only so many hours in a day. So
yeah, even a non-Bucs cruise for only 3 days, you really can't pull off. I always ask, how the hell? Like, I did a 4-night, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I couldn't do half the stuff I wanted.
Yeah, it was a lot of, this place to that place to this place to that place. But, if they make it a few more days, it fixes a lot of those problems. So most of my complaints are just because of the reduction in time. But everything else was great. As far as what I took that people noticed the most or had the most comments on, I took a replica Lombardi from the first Super Bowl, since we had Brooks was going to be there. We had Allstott, Brad Johnson, and Dexter Jackson. So I took that as an opportunity to get those guys on there. It was a little tricky because Brooks will not get on the boat when it's not at dock. He won't be on the boat while it's at sea. He must have a fear of the ocean. He will. So when it docks at Key, that's why they do Key West every year, because Brooks meets them in Key West. He does an event. And then he gets off the boat before it leaves, so he won't be on it. So,
wait, so he wasn't actually on at sea, huh?
No, no. And he made a comment about it in the panel. So that's where I took it from, that he probably doesn't have any desire to be on the boat when it's on the ocean. So he did a breakfast. You make a donation to his charity. You go to this breakfast, and he'll sign an item for you. So a friend of mine was attending. He took the trophy for me. Had Derek sign it. So that's how I got him. And then I fought the mosh pit for Allstott. Waited in line for Dexter Jackson. Brad Johnson is the man, and he let me skip the line. That's all I'm going to say. But it was the best. Captain Fear noticed it and came over and asked to hold it and took a picture with it. Brian Ford noticed it and came over. Handed me his Super Bowl ring and told me to put it on, and that was pretty cool. And then it wouldn't come off my finger, so I said, I guess it's mine now.
This came with the cruise, honey.
Yeah, that's how it works. But the trophy went over really well. It turned out really nice. I have one for the second Super Bowl, but the only guy that was there was Will Golston from.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a little. Or no, a lot of the guys that backed out, I guess, too, weren't even on that team. So
now, Wirfs was the biggest one. That was the biggest disappointment that Tristan wasn't there. I had a couple things that I would have liked to have him sign. I took both of the belts, but man, there was just so many things going on. I never took them out of the room, so it just made my suitcase heavier. But as far as the canvases go, man, I was just online one day, and I got a random pop up, that you should never click on, this canvas company. And I went and I loaded my cart up with all this stuff. And then I kind of changed my mind and backed out of it. And then I got an email that says, hey, finish your shopping. We'll do everything at 93% off. So I was like, all right. I paid through PayPal, so I had protection just to be on the safe side. This stuff came in less than a week, looked great, and it was very addicting. And then I just thought, man, wouldn't it be cool to photo match off these and then put those in the case, and then you could get those signed. So I started doing that. But now I have just huge stacks of canvas laying on the floor because I don't have any more room for it. And you can do a big one. I did two 30 by 40 Mike Evans, and they were $30, and it's fully stretched canvas. They're really nice quality. You pay more for the frames than you do the canvas, so it's really nice. It's addicting. They look nice. It's better than just a glossy photo or a poster, in my opinion. But I like to do things that are a little bit more unique than the everyday items. That's why I don't do mini helmets and stuff. I just feel like it's too common. I like to do the more rare stuff.
Yeah, and Zach, I did football cards in mine, but I think I might switch to the canvases. Like I like the cards too. They're more unique. They're custom made, but the canvas just looks great. The signature on the canvas itself. If anyone has any canvas signings, they know how nice those come out. But that is incredible. And Stank wants to ask you about your G string and rhinestones. So if
Yeah, I did a swap with a player. My game worn for his game worn. So I didn't get it signed. Think it was part of a swap. I sent one
a
with him.
jersey swap, or well, maybe a personal private swap, but nonetheless, it's some sort of swap. But to me, Zach, you mentioned as well players backing out, and obviously you can't help it with personal stuff and whatnot. But to me, you should have like almost backup agreement, even if they're not the most notable names. I mean, you're paying a lot of money to do the Bucs Cruise. I know you're still going to have a great time, even if X, Y, and Z aren't there. But maybe you have a little backup plan or something, with players. Or I know it's hard with coaches, even retired ones. That would be cool to have. I know they tried their best to fill some spots, but you look at all the guys who stay around the Tampa area. I'm sure you could pull something out, even if they're not the biggest fan favorite. But
The majority of the cancellations happened like the week of. Like I know Yaya got sick right before the cruise was supposed
can't
to
do
go.
nothing about that.
Yeah, there's just nothing they can do, And then when the guys are like, I don't even think they made like JTS ended up canceling, and so did Trey Palmer. But they were like, we didn't even get notification of that. We didn't find out till we were on the boat. And JTS is obvious why he didn't come.
He had to get his flight to Cleveland.
Right. So, I mean, they did the best with what they could. It's not their fault that it happens. It's just, the way things shake out in the limited time and the way they do their autograph signings, man, it just made it so much different. But again, I probably was in the minority of the main reason I did the cruise was to have access to the players because I don't live in Tampa and I don't have that type of access to get to them. So for me, it was a business trip. You know what I'm saying? Like my wife was on vacation. I was on a business trip because I wanted to get this stuff done.
Yeah, that's how even going to games and other events, me and you went to the Arians Family Foundation thing. It feels the same because me and you, we're different from most. We have to come out of town and we cherish our time, but at the same time, it's like, man, we don't get all these meet and greet opportunities that the norms get. So before we let J-Lo go, Nathan Elliott says he was a cruise attendee. He was a dog tag guy, Zach. I don't know if you know about the dog tag guy, but he says Fill the Boat was a success, and he says Trey Palmer is a yes man. He says yes everywhere year and is yet to show up. 2024, he was hungover. Guess this year he canceled. And then he also says Tristan Wirfs was moved to the She Is Football weekend. So you said Yaya got sick. Trey Palmer, I guess, cancels every year. And Tristan Wirfs had bigger opportunities from the Bucs to fry, apparently. So I guess those three guys make sense. Trey Palmer Mama was his tap out. So interesting stuff from our guy Nate. He seems like a cruise insider of the Bucs Cruise. Brian Cook joins us. But did you get to meet Nate at all, Zach? And Jonas also asked, who's the oldest Bucs player you got a signature from?
Probably Brad on the cruise. I think Jimmy Giles was advertised, but he wasn't there. And Batman Woods wasn't part of the signing. He was on the panel, but I don't remember him being at either of the signings. So Brad and Mike were the two from the O2 team.
I still can't believe that, and I hope Derek's okay or seasick maybe, but I still can't believe that. That's a crazy. That just blows my mind. That I know Key West ain't a far drive for him at least, but hey, Nathan says Jimmy Giles was on the boat. Maybe he just didn't do signings or something. But
yeah, I didn't see him, but that's just how it goes. So
hey. We do have another question for you. I know you have Rashad signed jersey, so my guy has a vintage one, I believe, number 29, but you could answer the other one a little better. Maybe not a jersey or signed jersey, but what Rashad White items or Bucky Irvin items you got in your collection, my friend?
I got a Rashad White rookie gamer from the Panthers game that he was kind enough to bless me with. I don't have anything Bucky. Bucky's price tag is pretty steep for coming out the gate. So he's at like 5K already, which is, that's pretty pretty big price tag right out the gate like that. So I don't have anything Bucky signed yet. I also have a Rashad White football around here somewhere from one of the shout out loose cannon trips. That's another good way. Sorry to take over your pod for just a second, but that's another good way.
No, keep going.
To travel with the team. They do a good job with their annual trip, and if you haven't taken part of that, you should. Tones, I don't know where you've been at. I've been on like 5, 6 of these things, and you ain't came yet.
I know. I got to, man. I got to. How would you describe those quickly? Those experiences, quick, before we get into the next group of questions.
Those are great, man. Those guys do a great job of doing, getting us a hotel, game tickets. They set up several events throughout the weekend. They do 3 and 4 day packages. They also usually, if you go a 4-day package, they did like a stadium tour, so you can go all into these stadiums. And the last couple of years, we've done Green Bay and Kansas City and Dallas, some really bucket list type stadiums to go to, and it's just a real good time. Everybody's super nice, and it's nice to network with other Bucs fans. Same thing with the cruise. A lot of the people that I knew from the cruise were people that I met on these loose cannon invasion packages. So any opportunity you can get to go with a group of fans to an away stadium, it's just a great experience. So I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, and I last year I went to New Orleans, Atlanta, Kansas City. So I bounced around. It's just hard. I always want to do the invasions, but my pops, he's get it. We have our own little thing. This year I'm gonna try to get to one, but it's always a little tricky. But man, New Orleans last year, me and my guy went quick, Jake, my buddy of mine, and we got row 1, and we had a lot of fun times there. But I could only imagine a loose cannons trip. That has to be incredible. I'm gonna try and get.
We're going to try to get a bunch of people to do Carolina this year because it's a cheap ticket. It's a cheap hotel. You get right downtown. You can walk to the stadium. You don't need to have Ubers and different things. So, I'll get with you and send you some information on it. But, my wife and I did it last year. It was super easy. I think if I'd have paid them like $20 more for the tickets, we could have called a play or something. And it was so cheap.
That's awesome. Me and my pops talked about Carolina because, I've been to every other division stadium now outside of Carolina. So I'd like to see that. And like you said, cheapish, and it seems like decent weather half the time too. So definitely a place I got to go. J-Lo, any questions for the great Zach about collecting or cruising?
For the most part, Zach pretty much laid it all out there. I've been cruising before, but as far as the Bucs Cruise, it's definitely a bucket list of mine I would love to do. Just the way you explained everything on how the players acted. Mike Allstott, he was my all-time favorite before Evans came into the group. Also just a great guy overall. I ran into him at a Sam's Club a couple of years ago, and he took a picture with me. Very nice guy, man. He's never changed, I'm just so glad that he's just one of those players that would just go above beyond for the fans. But as far as the cruising goes, just everything you said in perspective just makes me want to definitely hop on a cruise sooner or later. That's definitely going to be happening. Maybe not next year or maybe the following year. It just depends. All budget, we all got, lives outside of, the football world. But I appreciate you, giving the story on everything, man. I really do. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great to hear for guys like us here on the Buccateers. You're watching live right now. Catch your replay on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Will be live Saturday as well. Saturday morning, most likely, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Always catch us Tuesdays and Saturdays, but we'll have to pocket to Wednesdays here, and we'll explain that on the next show for the foreseeable future. But either way, that's the upcoming schedule. Come hang out with us Saturday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Zach, big collector yourself, my friend. Double dip here. Jonas says, who's your oldest autograph ever? And secondly, I got one for you. Any new pickups you want to share, or any new favorite pieces of memorabilia you might want to throw in the ring?
Oldest. it still would be Brad. I don't have any of the creamsicle, so I don't have anything that I've gotten signed there. I've got a Leroy Selman print, but I don't think he signed it. I really, that's a whole era that I need to dive into. Most of my collection is probably the right after the uniform change from creamsicle to the red and pewter, so somewhere in there. As far as new pickups, oh man, I don't even know. I did practice jerseys for Mock and Gadecki to take on the cruise.
Those look cool.
Yeah. I handed it to Luke, and he was like, "How the hell did you get my practice jersey?" So that was pretty funny.
I feel like these like I know, they have a million things going. They're like real humans and plus with how much stuff they got going on but I always find it funny how clueless they are, how easily their items are available.
Yeah, it was funny. I was able to take all three of my Will Golston gamers and have that moment with him. He thought that was pretty cool. I met Scott Reynolds. Scott came over and we had a nice little interaction based off of that, so that was pretty cool.
You seem like a celebrity on board that cruise, damn near.
No, the basement is the celebrity. I'm just the proprietor of it. So, but as far as pickups, I got an Izian. I don't know if you knew that. I got an Izian recently, which is pretty. Wow. But my favorite pickup is the Winfield. I got the Winfield from the Falcons game where he caused the touchback on Ritter. And then slid across the ground, so it's got all this nice grass staining on the back. And then I got a Kalijah Cansey from the Redskins playoff game last year. That's probably my latest pickup.
And those are great ones, as we may have lost J-Lo, which is okay, but that's incredible stuff. All of those jerseys, that Cansey sounds sick as well. So Bucs by 30, it's pretty much a Bucs museum. If you pay him $10 on Venmo, you could go to his house and check. No, I'm kidding, but maybe one day. You do have enough inventory, I think, to give a Bucs they don't have a Hall of Fame yet, so maybe you could open it for them. But Zach, before we let you go, sorry, I know you're a busy guy and you helped me out a lot too, so I won't say, but thank you for your generosity from the cruise and whatnot. You're too kind to me, my man. But I know you're a big West Virginia guy. Sadly, their basketball team in the men's side got screwed. Their women's snuck in as a 6th seed in the women's side of things. So whether West Virginia or not, I know you're, not as big of a basketball guy outside, but if you are diving into March Madness at all, men's or women's wise, any team you might like out there to maybe win it all on either side of the thing?
Man, I have no knowledge of college basketball this year,
and that's okay, brother.
I don't keep up. I do a little bit of NBA towards the end of the season when the postseason starts coming around. But man, I put so much energy and effort into the football season and then the football off season, where if I tried to pick up another sport like basketball and be in it, my wife would not be my wife any longer, probably. So I will give you the secret to a happy marriage when it comes to football. If your wife is competitive, get her onto a fantasy football team. It has totally changed the way my Sundays go now because my wife is so competitive. She doesn't know the players' names, so like she'll always be like, I have T. Kelsey. Is that a good person to have? But she knows who Travis Kelce is. I'm just using it as an example. But she loves it, man, because if she can win some money, she's all in it. And it's definitely helped Sundays in the Johnson household. So I highly recommend that. But no, unfortunately, I don't as far as college basketball goes. I might watch the Final Four when it happens, but I couldn't name you a team in there. I would assume North Carolina and Duke, like that's from my days back when I was younger. That was the rivalry. I don't know if it still exists though.
Yeah, Duke's actually the #1 pick team to win it all this year. North Carolina was the last team to get in, and they won the first round yesterday. So crazy you brought those two up. They're on the opposite ends, but both are in it. And our guy Bucks Nation says stopping by, where we hope you're doing well. He met Bucky Irvin on Sunday. Nathan keeps sharing all his. That's the other. I love the autograph mini helmets and helmets, but I feel like I'd run out of room so damn quick. I do have a fair share of mini helmets, but Zach, before we let you go, brother, awesome stuff. We love to have you on throughout the year. You're welcome back any single time you want, my friend, not just Bucs Cruise talk, but any talk. What's your final word for the show? It could be about anything. Could be about the cruise, the Bucs offseason, memorabilia collecting. Leave us on a high note, and once again, give yourself a plug on where to find you, my friend.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier I don't do mini helmets. That's not saying that there's a knock on mini helmets. Collect what you're passionate about. Don't let anybody steal your passion when it comes to collecting, man.
That's the main thing with collecting, and not to cut you off, but do what you love doing. Don't let anybody throw you out of I have people tell me, you like hanging those stinky grass stained blah, and I'm like, you don't understand, bro. It's okay.
Right. That's how that's where it all starts, right? When we're little kids, we start collecting the things that we like, continue that, and not everybody has the same budget for collecting as everybody else does, right? And that doesn't mean one's the right way to do it and one's the wrong way to do it. Everything has value to the person that cherishes it. So if you like mini helmets, do mini helmets. They're great if you have limited space, if you like full size, do full, whatever you want, cleats, pants, some guys do mouth guards and, the tape around the wrist, like you can get anything. So collect what you're passionate about and don't let anybody dissuade you on that. Do the Bucs Cruise, man. It was great. I know I had like some low points, but I wanted to make sure I gave everybody a complete picture and what I found to be frustrating. But that doesn't mean it was bad or wrong, but do it. You meet a lot of great Bucs fans. There's nothing better than being around a group of Bucs fans. I know you'll appreciate this, Tones, because you don't live in Tampa either. The first time I went to a Bucs game was like walking into heaven, right? I'm always the only person in orange or red and pewter up here where I live. And I had never experienced being around thousands of other people that were like that. So I get out of it was a cab at the time, got out of the cab, walk into the stadium, and it was crazy to be amongst all these like-minded fans. So don't take that for granted. If you get that opportunity to do it, it's a good opportunity to network. You and I became friends over Bucs football and going to some events. So you never know what kind of relationships are going to come out of it. I've made several really good friends from these excursions that I've been able to go to. So, go for it. Yeah, it might be, it's a little bit more than the regular cruise. But you're paying for that experience, right? So do it. Yeah. If you ever thought about going to an away game, do it.
You get what you pay for, and if you love the team, you do it, man. And like you said, we've made friendships, we've made fantasy football league. A lot of this comes out of it, and it's fun. It intertwines you. A lot of people think about, oh man, you're too involved. No, you don't understand. It's more than just the team. It's friendships. It's families. It's collections. It's all this stuff. Like you said, vacations, cruising, road trips. I guarantee you, if you've never seen the Bucs play on the road, which me and Zach pretty much have to do a lot of the time, but if you never have, it's like a crazy cool. It's like a 48-hour journey that like you'll never want to miss again, and it's almost as cool as a home game, in my opinion. So Jonas says, honored to meet Zach and KC. Looking forward to many more with you, my friend. Jonas, I still owe you a beer from KC. My apologies, but Zach, you've been awesome, my friend. Welcome back anytime. And yeah, whether it's a Loose Cannons game, whether it's a Arians golf outing event, or whether it's a cruise, I know I'll surely cross paths with you real soon. My final word is simple. I know it's late, but happy St. Patty's Day. Happy St. Joseph's Day today. Whatever one you partake in, neither, that's fine. Both cool, but whatever you do. And happy March Madness, as we got the men's going right now. The women's is about to tip off as well. Thanks to Nathan, Jonas, Olivia, Christopher, JC, and everyone else who commented. Joey from Cleveland, me. But on behalf of Zach, Bucs by 30, the great J-Lo, maybe he's booking his next Bucs Cruise. Maybe that's where he went. But whether it's Zach, J-Lo, or Tampa Tones here, or the rest of the Buccateers, we appreciate all your support. Love you all. God bless. Stay safe. Have a great night. Go Bucs. Fire the damn cannons. Zach, thanks again, brother. We'll be talking real soon, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. As always, go Bucs and good night, everybody. Tampa Tones. on Sunday, man. I know you're nervous for the Rams, but you got to be a little enthusiastic after being there.
Bro, that game atmosphere was ridiculous. The energy, the electricity. That place was rocking. Anyone was there, and a lot of the Super Buck fans were there too. The Bucs.
Tampa Tones. We are joined by Lead Goon tonight, host of the Pat and Aaron Show of WDAE, Pat Donovan. And it sounds like Stunna is fumbling a little bit. Gonna put him on mute.